I'm going to start off by saying that you don't need a tutor, you don't need an app, and you don't need to pay someone or something in order to have the right to learn a language. I tried, when I was younger, to try and learn languages through these different pathways, and it just didn't end up working. So I resorted to figuring out how to do it myself, and this is what I'm going to share with you today. Je parle le français, c'est facile beaucoup pour moi. Ich spreche Deutsch, einfach für mich, ich rede Ruski, and there's a few others that I speak as well. The tradition that I tried to, or that I kind of set up for my life, was to learn a new language every year. And what I found is that after learning German, after learning French, I started to find that learning a language became so much more easier because of this process that I started to discover, which I'm going to show you now. So, alrighty, everybody. So now we're going to take a look at how we learn languages, the process that I've developed myself. And this started because when I was, I think, 15 or 16, I went to Italy and I tried to learn Italian and very poorly failed. And I tried many different ways of learning the language. I had this little book in the Airbnb that I tried to go through, listening to Italian music, Ernia and Speranza. There's a ton of them. There's some cool guys, but I still listen to Italian music. It's really cool. Duolingo and Rosetta Stone. I tried these apps, but it didn't really work for me. And so that's where I got to this point of saying, there must be a better way. There must be a different way. And analyzing how I like to learn, I eventually found this process, and my belief is that within a year you can become fluent in any language. And as I mentioned, every year I try and learn a new language. This year I've been doing other stuff on another video that could be there. But basically the principle is that the answer to the $1 million question is to build a house. And when I say build a house, the process of building a house is one in which we feel peace because we understand that the process works. And when we know that the process works, we feel comfortable in dedicating time towards it. Oftentimes we don't end up following through and learning something, any skill, but languages in particular, because we aren't sure whether we will actually ever learn it. And so when we build a house, there is a lot of faithfulness we need to have in the things we do. And oftentimes we have to believe the vision of it coming to fruition and the steps in between now and that reality, that vision becoming reality. We have to trust the process. Same is true with learning a language. And one of the big things for the house is that you've got to build a foundation, and the foundation is the most important thing of the house. However, it is the slowest, it's the most boring, and it is the part that never gets seen. You look at a house and you think, oh, there's nothing there yet, and all they've done is build the foundation. People spend, I don't know what it is, I think they spend like 3-6 months, whatever, on building the foundation, and then the next 30% of the time building the rest of the house. That's how important the foundation is. Get the foundation right. The same is true for a language. You need to make sure that your foundation, which is very boring, I know, grammar, is correct. Pronunciation, alphabet, all of those things fall into grammar, all of those things fall into sentence, the foundation of the house. And my personal bias is to start with pronunciation, then go into the alphabet, learning the nuances of the alphabet, and then going on to grammar. Because then once you're in the grammar part, you're getting exposure to different words, which you won't understand yet, and you'll have to learn them. But pronunciation allows you to at least repeat the word after reading it or hearing it. Cool. Once you've got the foundations right, then you want to start going on to building the walls of the house. And bear in mind, the foundations will take the longest part of learning your language, just like with a house. Just bear that in mind. Now we build the walls. And the walls is where things start to get a little bit more fun. We can have basic sentences, we can have basic conversations, and it starts to look like we're learning a language. What this involves is learning the nouns, simple nouns of objects, of things around us in our everyday life. And a very important point here is to not learn things that are irrelevant. If you're going to a country where there are no cars, wherever that is, or no trains, let's say maybe, don't learn trains. There is no point in learning trains. That language probably barely uses that word. And so learn words that are relevant to your situation. These 3 points that I'm bringing up now are just points that fall under the walls aspect. And there are probably a lot more that you'd fill in here, but these are the top 3 that came to mind. So prepositions. Learning prepositions allows you to use objects and to have relation between objects that you've learned. And so prepositions are like behind, in front of, etc. Next, we've got pronouns, and this is the way in which you can relate to people and animals and things that have a gender in that language.
Next, we've got the interrogative word, which involves where, how, what. These are probably the most important because, no, sorry, all three of these are super important because if you don't know how to do the relation between something and you don't know how to ask the question of where something is, and you don't know how to say, understand that what they're referring to when they say she in the sentence is referring to the bank because the bank has got a feminine connotation, then you're kind of stuck. So that's why I put these as the walls, because they allow you to navigate a basic sentence. We'll move on to the fun stuff. Interior design. Ask any person designing a house, the interior of a house is the way in which you turn a house into a home. And this is how you turn your language into something that you're trying to do, into something that you actually are doing fluently. And this is a few indicators that you can get, that you can see when, that you can look out for to show that you're getting to this point where you can start doing interior design and get past the more boring, monotonous stuff. When you're understanding what people are telling you, you're having basic conversations successfully, and you're practicing your accent. As you can see, all three of these rely on the first two, particularly on foundations. So when you get to a point where you're starting to figure out for yourself new words in the conversations you're having, let's say 80% of the conversation or sentence you understand and the 20% you don't understand, but you're starting to figure out what those words mean, now you're getting into this very powerful spot where you start to see not linear growth, but exponential growth. Because what took you a day to learn, maybe 2 weeks ago, now takes you one conversation to learn. And if you can have 10 conversations, 15 conversations, or just a really long conversation, you're going to learn so much more in that conversation, and it's going to feel so easy. That's the thing, is that the difficulty to reward changes. It flips. At first it's super difficult and you get such little output, and then it changes. It's so easy and you get so much out of it. And that's what happens over a period of time. And so consistency is really, really powerful. And I want you to see these as rooms of your house, of your metaphorical house, your mansion. You start to take a single story home into a mansion. 5-story home, 10-story home, 500 different rooms of local slang, more elegant vocabulary, and business terminology, and. This is when you can start having fun with your language, and that's when it gets really, really exciting because it becomes part of your life. And so this is the process that I use, and this is the way in which you can have surety that you are going to learn this language successfully, and that it is a process of time, and that if you follow the process, it will work out for you, and you'll learn the language in 6 months, at worst, maybe a year or 2 years, but you will learn the language, and that's better than not learning it at all.
And the biggest takeaway that you can have from this, if not the process, is the hack that I use to make sure that I can immediately go into a different language and start speaking. And that's to think in that language. All of us have a voice in our heads that we use in our day-to-day living. Say, oh, that pillow looks nice. Oh, that tree's nice. Oh, it's so nice and sunny. Blah, 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 blah. But if you start to integrate that language into your mind and you start to say, oh, well, I'm walking around the house, maybe I'm feeling hungry, and you're learning German. Let's say, instead of saying I'm feeling hungry, you just learned how to say I am hungry in German, and it's different. You don't say ich bin hungrig, you say ich habe Hunger. And so it's a unique way of saying I am hungry. You say I have hunger if you're learning from an English perspective. And so by practicing it in the day, you get to practice something that is quite different to English. You become used to that way of speaking, and by the time it comes to a point where you need to speak German, you already know. You just say ich habe Hunger, Sie haben Hunger, wir haben Hunger, einfach. And so if you integrate that language and the small components you're learning every day into your everyday living, you're not practicing for half an hour, you're practicing the whole day on autopilot. It becomes fascinating how much progress you can make. I hope this helps you, and this is something that I've developed myself. I haven't taken this from anyone else. This is purely my own copyright, basically. So if you want any resources, just let me know in the comments. I'll direct you to resources that I've either used or that are by people that I think are pretty good for the specific language you want to learn. This is all part of my life philosophy called Project Human, where you basically seek out to maximize your life's potential by seeking greatness in every single thing that you do. And one of the greatest ways we can build value in our lives is by building skills that we cannot purchase with money, skills that require time, energy, and effort. And languages is one of those skills that no one can purchase. You cannot purchase the skill of knowing how to speak a language, but you can gain it. So, hope this helped. Ciao.